Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, ranging from bestsellers to celebrity memoirs, news, business, and self-development. Every month, members get 1 credit to pick any title, plus 2 Audible originals from a monthly selection, and access to daily news digests from the New York Times, the Wall Street Journal, and the Washington Post, as well as guided meditation programs. Between a full-time job in IT and a full-time job in podcasting, it gets harder and harder to sit down and read the books I'm interested in. This is where Audible comes in. I can listen on my daily commute, relaxing, or while out running errands and still get in the books I've been wanting to get into. You can download titles and listen offline anytime, anywhere. The app is free and can be installed on all smartphones and tablets. Now you can try Audible risk-free with a special 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. That's audibletrial.com/nerdery and murdery. Don't let your busy life get in the way of that great book you've been wanting to read. Go get your free trial of Audible today. This podcast is sponsored by BetterHelp. This is Geoffrey, and we've talked about many times before that I experience problems and struggles with my mental health, and really without a healthy mind, being truly happy and at peace is hard. The good news is therapy does work. It's helped for me, but what is therapy exactly? It's whatever you want it to be. Maybe you're not feeling motivated right now and would like some tools to help. Or maybe you're feeling insecure in relationships at work, or you're not dealing well with stress. Whatever you need, it's really time to stop being ashamed of normal human struggles, and it's time to start feeling better because you deserve to be happy. And now you don't have to worry about finding an in-person therapist near you to help. BetterHelp is a customized online therapy that offers video, phone, and even live chat sessions with your therapist, so you don't have to see anyone on camera if you don't want to. It's much more affordable than in-person therapy, and you can start communicating with your therapist in under 48 hours. So join the millions of people who are seeing what online therapy is really about. It's always a good time to invest in yourself because you are your greatest asset. And there's a special offer to Nerdery and Murdery listeners. You can get 10% off your first month of professional therapy at betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. That's betterhelp.com/nerdery and murdery. Thanks again to BetterHelp for sponsoring this podcast. Yeah, I mean, at this time I quit. All right, welcome to episode 34 of Nerdery and Murdery. This episode comes out on January 23rd. We're fresh after another week of guestery with Trey.
Excellent.
And for those of you who couldn't tell on the stab, it looks like Zig's going to be covering some Doctor Who today.
Why, yes, as a matter of fact, I am. I'm Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery.
I will be covering Doctor Who today.
So it's funny that you're covering it this week because I saw 2 rumors this week of potential doctors.
Oh.
I like both of them.
Okay.
But they're rumors.
Yeah.
Helena Bonham Carter is one. I thought you'd be really interested in that.
Oh.
The second one I'm more interested in. Tom Ellis. Lucifer. He's rumored to possibly be the new Doctor.
Oh, yeah.
So we've got some good ones. I mean,
Yeah.
So Helena Bonham Carter, Tom Ellis. I've also heard Dadgummit. Now, why can't I think of his name? The played Roland Deschain in The Dark Tower. Idris Elba. That's another one that's been heavily rumored. So I think we'll probably find out a new Doctor any time now. But the Tom Ellis one I actually saw 2 days ago.
Oh, nice.
So I would be happy with any of those.
Yeah.
So
all of those sound awesome.
Yeah. Yeah, so I know you're just dying, itching to get into it. So I'm going to turn the show over to you and let you talk about Doctor Who.
Woohoo! Okay, so a little background. Doctor Who started broadcasting here in the DFW area on Channel 39 in 30-minute blocks back in about 1983. Shortly after that, they went to KERA, where they showed them in the full movie form about 1983, 1984. I became enamored with this show at about that time, about 1983.
You've been enamored with Doctor Who as long as I've known you.
Yeah, since I was 10.
You were trying to tell me how great Doctor Who was when I wasn't really a Doctor Who fan, because my exposure to it was PBS. Mm-hmm. And it would be on Saturday nights. Mm-hmm. And it was during the Tom Baker era.
Yes.
And a lot of those episodes were too slow for me.
Mm-hmm.
They didn't have enough action in it, and I couldn't stay with it. And you'd have an episode that was 50 minutes, and then you'd have an episode that was 2.5 hours.
Yes.
And it drove me crazy. And
Yes.
I just couldn't stay with it.
Well, it's because the series originally was serialized. So there were... Every episode that we had was basically broken down into different parts.
Right.
So in one case, it would be just 2 parts, and in some cases, it would be 4 or even 6 parts.
Right.
So, yeah, again, you either got 50 minutes, the Sontaran experiment, or you got 2.5 hours, the Ark in Space.
Sure.
Yes, I have been a fan. PBS, or our local PBS station, KERA, did eventually go back and show some of the existing black and white episodes. Now, something that the BBC did back in the 70s is they were worried about not having enough space on videotape because it was expensive.
Sure.
So they erased hours and hours and hours of the 60s Doctor Who.
Wow.
Yeah, and recorded things over them.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah. So they have slowly been able to recover these from other places because they sent Doctor Who all over the world. Mm-hmm. The most recent one I know of, there were 2 full stories of Patrick Troughton, the second Doctor, that came from, I want to say, Zimbabwe.
Is that the ones they showed around Christmas a year or 2 ago? The lost episodes?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, and they thought that all of those episodes, except for one,
Right.
Were completely lost. I want to say they're both 6-parters. No, one was a 4-part and one was a 6-part. The only existing episodes they knew of was 1.
Well, and so I know you're wanting to cover each iteration of the Doctor.
Yes.
Because we're working on the 14th one now.
Yes.
For those who are not initiated in Doctor Who.
Yes.
Tell us who Doctor Who is.
Okay. So basically the idea came about in the early 60s. They wanted to produce a children's program that could catch some adults as well. It was going to be a science fiction program where they had a time traveler where that people could learn about science and history. That was the original idea. Mm-hmm. And they wanted to make the character, the Doctor, mysterious. So the companions were the iteration of the audience who asked questions of the Doctor. And the Doctor was supposed to be mysterious. The first thought was, we're going to make the Doctor an alien.
Sure.
We're never going to tell you his name. It's Peter Sigma, by the way.
Right.
Yeah, it took 25 years to get that the first time. But yeah, you don't know his name. He is just the Doctor. He's an old grandfatherly figure. And he travels around space and time and takes these companions with them and teaches them about the universe. So that was the initial idea. Mm-hmm. The original actor who played him, who I'm going to talk about today, William Hartnell, he had a hardening of the arteries issue after the 3rd season, or toward the end of the 2nd season, into the 3rd season, and he had to retire from the job. He had to basically, take a step back because it was serialized. Mm-hmm. So they basically recorded 10 or 11 months out of the year. That's why there's so many episodes of Doctor Who up until the new series, is because they recorded basically all year long. And it was always on. Mm-hmm. Every Sunday night, you got 30 minutes of Doctor Who.
Right.
in England at tea time. Kids would come in, they would have their tea, which back in that day, it was still a meal. And they would watch Doctor Who and get the bejesus scared out of them and learn about, history and science and things like that. So this was an iconic piece of a lot of British people's childhood.
So, okay, so you said he had a hardening of the arteries.
So he had to quit. So what they wanted to do was keep the show going because it was so popular. They came about, the idea of, since he was an alien, instead of having him die and be replaced by another doctor, what they're going to do is just have him regenerate.
Right.
And become a different actor.
Right.
Once that happened, the show was off and running. Because now we're up to we're coming up on the 14th.
Yeah, the new one will be the 14th Doctor.
Yeah, the 14th Doctor.
So was the TARDIS from the beginning?
Yes.
The ship? Okay. Because you haven't mentioned the TARDIS.
He travels around in a ship, a time and space ship called the TARDIS, which stands for Time and Relative Dimensions in Space.
Right.
It is an acronym.
And the TARDIS is sentient.
Yes, it is a sentient being.
Right.
But it's also a time and spaceship. It doesn't have any offensive weapons.
Right.
That's kind of the key. That's a key point of this series. The Doctor doesn't use weapons because the Doctor has his intelligence. He comes from a
Except once.
Except once.
Yeah.
Well, he's used I think he's used a gun, and I know that.
It's been some times. I mean the Battle for TARDIS, I think he used a weapon.
Yes. And
or the battle for not TARDIS, the battle for Geoffrey.
Yeah, Gallifrey.
Thank you.
Yeah, when he became the War Doctor.
Yes.
Well, oh yeah, so I guess this is technically the 15th Doctor.
Technically, right.
Yeah, because we talk about the War Doctor. So what happens is the Doctor regenerates and he travels around space and time in this machine, which is bigger on the inside than it is on the outside because it is a relative dimension in space. So basically, the TARDIS, the exterior is just a door. And when you walk through it, you're actually in another dimension, which is where the ship itself exists.
Right.
Which makes it easier for it to travel through space and time.
So, for me, as I said, I couldn't get into the old ones. And I've talked about it in another episode previously, and so I'm mentioning it again here. My dive into Doctor Who starts really with Chris Eccleston.
Okay.
Even though I'm familiar with the older Doctors, because like I said, I tried to watch them. It was science fiction. I wanted to watch them. But the Chris Eccleston Doctor Who is where everything really started for me.
When they brought it back in 2005.
Correct. So in saying that, I don't have a lot of the history and the knowledge going back to the beginning. Did the Doctor start off with the TARDIS as a police box, or do they explain that at the very beginning?
Yes. So in the very first episode, the TARDIS has a chameleon circuit.
Right.
Which makes it blend into its surroundings. In the first episode, they go inside the police box, because those were common in 1963 in London. They go inside the police box, and it's this ship, and it goes to 10,000 BC into this group of cavemen on the Ice Age, and the Doctor turns around and goes, "That's odd. It should have changed by now." What do you mean? Well, it's got a chameleon circuit. It's supposed to blend in its surroundings. Basically, the chameleon circuit got broken. And it stayed like that for up until Colin Baker. Colin Baker actually fixed the chameleon circuit, and it started working, but he didn't like it, so he turned it off. So yes, the chameleon circuit in the TARDIS now works. He just doesn't use it. There's an episode with Matt Smith where he basically makes it invisible. And he has to yell, "Make her blue again!"
Well, another thing about the TARDIS that you find out, I think it's during the Matt Smith Doctor Who, is the reason that the TARDIS makes that distinctive noise as it fades in and out is he's got the parking brake on.
He leaves the brakes on because he likes the noise. just makes me laugh every time I see his face making that noise. I'm like, yeah, I would too. That's a really cool noise. So yeah, they got William Hartnell to do this, and William Hartnell was an English stage actor for the most part. He did a lot of military stuff, so he's best remembered today as the first Doctor in the television series Doctor Who, which he played from 63 to 66. He was also well known playing Company Sergeant Major Percy Bullimore in the ITV sitcom The Army Game in 1957 and 1961, and Sergeant Grimshaw, the title character of the first Carry On film, Carry On Sergeant, in 1958. So yeah, they cast William Hartnell because he was tetchy, he was irascible. They wanted him to be kind of disagreeable because he's supposed to be an alien.
Right.
I think the idea was he needs to be really, really aloof. Again, that's why you don't hear his name until 20 years on. Now, in the series narrative, the Doctor is a centuries-old alien, a Time Lord from the planet Gallifrey. Now, you don't hear that for years. You don't know where he's from. He just says, "My planet, my people."
Right.
He travels around space and time in his TARDIS, which he stole. You find out later.
Right.
Yes, he stole that.
Yes.
But the TARDIS let itself get stolen because it liked him. And he will grab companions because the audience needs the companions because someone has to ask the weird questions because the Doctor basically just knows everything.
Right.
Because he's been around and he's,
Well, and you get in later episodes, you see this especially with Matt Smith and oh my God, his name's escaped me. The one right before him,
David Tennant.
Thank you, David Tennant. Wow. And then David Capaldi is the Doctor is lonely.
Yes, the Doctor is very lonely,
and companions are really a way for him to not be lonely, and he gets to. The Doctor sometimes is almost like a kid too, because he likes to go on these adventures and likes to see these things, and he likes to show other people, and you see that in many of the iterations of the Doctor, and many of the different.
Oh, hey,
Doctors.
we need to go here. You're gonna love this.
Yes.
But he often gets into trouble. So the first episode aired 3 days after John F. Kennedy was assassinated.
Oh wow.
Yeah. It was called an Unearthly Child. So how it opens up is these two school teachers are talking about this one kid who is brilliant, but doesn't understand how money works. Like, she starts talking about decimalized money in England, which in 1963 they hadn't done yet. They were about 4 or 5 years away from that. Now they were talking about it, but she views it as dealing with it that way. So they follow her home to kind of talk to her parents, and she goes into this junkyard at 76 Totters Lane. You see that come out in the 50th anniversary. That's the address right next door to the Coal Hill School, 76 Totters Lane. And in the middle of the junkyard is this police box, which it really shouldn't be in the junkyard. It should be out on the street because it's a police call box. Anyway, that's when they go in. The two teachers follow her in, and the Doctor basically sets the TARDIS off to go someplace else. The problem is he doesn't control it very well. Right. For one, it's one person controlling it. It's actually designed to be 6 people. So if you see the TARDIS console, it's actually a hexagonal for 6 stations. So you don't have to run around and do it all the time. And if in a few episodes where people who knew what they were doing, they had all 6 working on it, and it worked great.
Huh. And again, that's you find out in later years that he doesn't. He really doesn't know how to drive the thing.
No. He was basically a history professor.
Right.
Yeah, because the Time Lords had stopped going around the galaxy. They didn't need to anymore. They'd gathered all the information they needed to gather. And they basically just watched and, well, as he said, they were kind of decaying.
So have they ever in any episode mentioned if the Time Lords were done, if they didn't feel the need to travel anymore, why they even kept the TARDIS around?
It was in a museum.
Okay.
It was a museum piece. And he was a curator of one of the museums, and that's when he took it. He's initially cast as a stubborn and abrasive old man, is why they cast William Hartnell. who was distrustful of humans, but he mellowed out in time and became more of a friendly grandfatherly figure like he was with Susan, because he did have a granddaughter at the opening. They never really explained that. In a few episodes, I think in the David Tennant series, he did once say, I was a dad once. I remember that. It was nice.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. Talked about, I remember being a dad once. But, it's thought that it was just him and Susan traveling around, and he took her to 20th century Earth so she could learn about being a teenager. Mm-hmm. And after she'd been there 7-8 months, it was like, well, it's time to move on. Susan was originally played by Carol Ann Ford, and the two school teachers were Ian Chesterton, played by William Russell, and Barbara Wright, played by Jacqueline Hill. Both of those two actors actually come back for the series. I think Carol Ann Ford came back for the 20th anniversary. But Ian Chesterton, or William Russell and Jacqueline Hill came back and played different characters in Doctor Who throughout its run in the 70s and the 80s. Now, eventually he loses companions and picks up different ones. Because as it was put by a companion later on, there's only so many times you could say, "What is it, Doctor? What is it, Doctor? What is it, Doctor?
Right.
How do we do that, Doctor?" So I think the longest serving companion was Sarah Jane Smith.
That's what I was going to say.
Played by Elizabeth Sladen, who was with him for like 4 seasons. I don't think anybody else went a full 4 seasons. And again, back in the early days, there were...
How many seasons did Rose Tyler go? Because she was all of Chris Eccleston.
Yeah, that's one season.
Right, that's one. And then how many was she with Tennant?
Just one.
Just one?
Yeah,
okay.
Just one season.
Okay.
And she came back, and again, some of them will come back, like Sarah Jane came back, and then they gave her own series.
Oh, then Pond was with Matt Smith the whole time, wasn't she?
No, he picked up Clara in the 3rd season.
That's right. I forgot about Clara. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, most people last about 2 seasons.
Yeah.
Now, in later episodes, he also traveled alongside a 25th century orphan named Vicky and a space pilot named Steven. That's as they replaced the companions, they had other people come in. There was a Trojan handmaid, Katrina, played by Adrienne Hill, and a 60s flower child, Dodo Chaplet, played by Jackie Lane. His final on-screen companions were a sailor, Ben, played by Michael Craze, and the posh and sophisticated Polly, played by Annette Willis. Of the 134 episodes that Hartnell appeared in as a regular, 45 are currently missing.
Wow.
Because of the BBC's erasure. Now, what they have done is they've been able to find audio of them because they also recorded them for the radio. So they've animated a bunch of them. So there's a lot of those that they've brought back. They're basically animated with that. And as they find them, they bring them back into the fold and clean them up and make them available.
And throughout the series run, you have multiple villains that always come back every season.
Oh, yeah.
Daleks.
Yes.
Is that from all the way back?
Yeah, okay. So the first Hartnell story, the first Doctor Who story, was where they go to 10,000 BC, in the Ice Age. And as soon as that's done, they didn't have anything else written, so they go with this one from Terry Nation called The Daleks. So it is the second serial that they ran.
Okay.
And that's where the series blew up because people were just enamored with the idea of the Daleks. And what the Dalek is something that used to be a human that has been messed with genetically and via radiation to be this small lump of hate. Basically a one-eyed octopus that lives in this tank.
Right.
A small man-sized tank that is, and they are... they're all racists. Anything that's not Dalek needs to be destroyed.
Yeah, they're killing machines.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, so Daleks. Cybermen?
Okay. Hartnell's last episode was the first Cybermen episode.
Okay, so that goes all the way back.
Yeah.
And then as the years go on, it seems like they have added in some villains.
Sontarans, they added in during John Pertwee.
Weeping Angels.
Weeping Angels, that didn't come in until, I want to say, whenever...
Tennant.
Yeah, Tennant.
The Silence.
The Silence was
Those
new,
come back.
Yeah.
So yeah, they seem to add in.
The Zygons were from the 70s.
Yes. What about the Master?
Okay,
Does that go all the way back?
No, the Master doesn't. It goes back to John Pertwee.
Okay.
So the first color episodes. I want to say the Master's first episode was the second or third episode in the series. And the Master is another Time Lord,
right?
Who the Doctor has basically known his whole life,
right?
Now Hartnell did reprise his role once in the 10th anniversary episode, The Three Doctors. He's only in it for a few brief seconds because again, that was 7 years after he had retired, and he was in pretty bad shape. Mm-hmm. So it's basically just him sitting in a small room on the view screen, and he's talking. The character of the original Doctor has appeared after that, after William Hartnell's death, which was shortly after he filmed The Three Doctors. Most prominently in the 1983's The Five Doctors, where he's portrayed by Richard Hurndall, and 2 episodes in 2017 in a cameo, The Doctor Falls, and in the Christmas special, Twice Upon a Time, both played by David.
Twice Upon a Time is the one
Bradley.
that takes place on the battlefield, isn't it?
Yes.
That's a beautiful episode.
Yeah. So, yeah, and David Bradley, I think, plays... I think he really tapped into William Hartnell, because you watch some of those old William Hartnell episodes, especially the early ones, like The Daleks, which exists, The Unearthly Child, which also exists. He kind of tapped into that irascible kind of smarmy, or not smarmy, just tetchy, annoyed old dude. Right. He had it dialed in. So yeah, the original 2 companions, Barbara and Ian, are taken back to the year 100,000 BC, not 10,000 BC. Sorry about that. They spent 2 years adventuring through space and time. But again, with the companions, they want to go on to do different things, because once you scored Doctor Who, that was your ticket out. But if you stayed too long, you could get typecast.
Sure.
And that's what most people were afraid of. It's nice to get your face out there and then go do other things. Mm-hmm. So most companions lasted a year or 2. Most of the Doctors early on only lasted 3 years.
Right.
So you had, which is what they do now. I think Tennant ended up doing, technically he only did 3 seasons, but that one season was a bunch of specials. So I think it's really more like 4.
Yeah, I don't know why Tennant and Matt Smith always makes me think they went so much longer.
No. 3 seasons. And then, of course, again, Tennant's went a little longer because that last season was broken up into a bunch of specials.
Yeah, it just feels longer on both, because I feel like Peter Capaldi's was short.
Yeah, it's the exact same time.
So weird. And then Jodie Whittaker, only getting her for 2?
No, this is her 3rd season.
Is it really?
Yeah, she's getting 3 seasons. Yeah. She's done 2 seasons.
I may have missed an entire season of
Jodie Whittaker.
Of Jodie Whittaker then.
Yeah. So yeah, the idea is that this show has been going on for 60 years. Now, having said that, the original iteration of this show ran from 1963, November of 1963, to September of 1989. They took Doctor Who off the air at that point.
Right.
They did try to bring it back in 1997 with a movie co-produced by Fox. It did great in Britain, didn't do well here, so they canceled bringing it back. It took them another 9 years to bring it back in 2005.
Right.
So we didn't have any Doctor Who between 1989 and 1996, and then from 1996 to 2005.
Right.
So technically, the longest running Doctor is Sylvester McCoy, because when they made the movie, he was the Doctor who was there when they brought it back.
Right. But right. Okay.
Either him or the new Doctor. Oh my God, I can't remember I just drew a blank on that man's name.
The new Doctor?
Well, okay, so in the 1986 movie, it was, I am a terrible Doctor Who fan because I cannot remember that man's name. It's just, I have lost it. It's gone.
Which one?
The Doctor Who movie.
From 91?
Yep. No, 96.
Oh, from 96.
Mm-hmm.
Oops. Well, we'll edit this out here in a minute.
Okay.
Paul McGann or Sylvester
Paul McGann.
McCoy?
Paul McGann.
Oh, and Eric Roberts was the master.
Yeah, Eric Roberts was great as the master. So yeah, Paul McGann. Thank you. Because he was the doctor for 9 years. But I want to say Sylvester McCoy went longer because his gap was 6 years, but he'd already done it for 3 years before that. So yeah, I think Paul McGann and Sylvester McCoy may be tied for the longest running doctor.
Well, it shows Paul McGann listed as the fugitive doctor and Sylvester McCoy is the 7th doctor.
Yes.
Okay.
And then after the fugitive doctor, you get the war doctor, and then Christopher Eccleston. So yeah, but it was in this original incarnation, as you said, the first time he met the Daleks and the Cybermen, and they would become his most implacable foes.
Good word. Good word.
Implacable. Thank
Good
you.
word.
Yeah. The TARDIS crew also observed many historical events, such as the Reign of Terror in Revolutionary France. They met Marco Polo in China and the Aztecs in Mexico. Now, the Aztecs does exist, and that is a beautiful episode if you don't get a chance to see that one. Again, it's an old black and white episode, but they were really able to stretch out that budget when they were just still shooting in black and white, and it's beautiful. Now, the character Susan fell in love with human resistance fighter David Campbell, and the doctor left her behind to allow her to build a life for herself on 22nd century Earth. Which was the Daleks' invasion of Earth. So that's how Carol Ann Ford left. She went on to do some other things. He promised to return someday. And then he was joined by Vicky after Ian and Barbara left. And then, which he rescued from the planet Dido.
Dido?
Dido.
All right.
D-I-D-O.
Okay.
Ian and Barbara used the Daleks' time machine to go home in the chase. Vicky took their place in the TARDIS. The Doctor met another member of his own race for the first time in the form of the meddling monk in the adventure Galaxy 4. So the first time you see another a Time Lord is in Galaxy 4.
So in the initial series, because I know
there were 30-minute episodes that made a full story.
Right.
I think they're actually 25 minutes.
So not remembering my lore real well, because, I'm not as deep of a fan, but was there a point where the other Time Lords were actively chasing him because he stole the... Okay.
Yes. Well, okay. Not so much chasing him, but like at the end of the Patrick Troughton era, there's a long story where someone is using Time Lord technology to go throughout time. It turns out it's an ex-Time Lord.
Mm-hmm.
And the Doctor has to elicit help from the Time Lords. And they take away his ability to travel through space and time and strand him on 20th century Earth. So the first 2 seasons of John Pertwee's series, or run as the Doctor, he's stranded on Earth working with UNIT.
Okay.
Which is the United Nations Intelligence Task Force.
Right. Okay.
So yeah, he and as a matter of fact, they put him on trial at one point for basically transgressing the laws of time.
Mm-hmm.
Where they're going to take away his regenerations. It turns out he wasn't. He was actually a group of Time Lords who were doing that to him. As John Pertwee, there's a group called the CIA, the Celestial Intervention Agency, which is an arm of the Time Lords, who basically make him go do stuff. And there's a couple episodes during Tom Baker where they basically just pull him out of time and go, okay, you need to go fix this. Because he's out there. They don't have anybody else running around getting stuff done. He's their guy.
And so is the TARDIS their only time machine?
Mm-mm. No, the Master has a TARDIS.
Okay.
There are lots of TARDISes on Gallifrey. They just don't use them.
Okay.
It basically they went out and discovered everything they needed to discover because the Time Lords are one of the oldest races in the galaxy or in the universe.
Mm-hmm.
So they've spent what is essentially million years going all throughout space and time. And they figured everything out, and they just kind of rest on their laurels.
Okay.
Hey, you could still become a Time Lord on Gallifrey, because not all the Gallifreyans are Time Lords. I think the name of the species is actually Sheboygan, which they don't mention until the 70s. The Time Lords basically live in the Citadel and discuss philosophy. That's what they do. and study things.
Right.
Like, okay, we've got this great archive here of all this stuff. I'm going to go in and study it and see if there's something that we missed. But yeah, they don't go out and do any field research anymore. It is just the Doctor. And you find out there's more of them that have gone out and done that. The Master.
Right.
The Ronnie, the meddling monk, like I mentioned. Drax, which Tom Baker meets up in the Trial of the Key to Time series. Which he didn't realize that he knew Drax, and Drax was just, what are you doing out here? Oh, just running around in the TARDIS and got stuck here and had to build a computer for these people. So, and Romana. Romana is sent by the Time Lords to help the Doctor reconfigure the Key to Time. Well, Romana stays gone. So she's out there somewhere, but you never see Romana again. You never see Susan again either. Susan, except for the episode, the 20th anniversary episode, you never hear anything about Susan. So every time they go to Gallifrey, I'm always expecting to either see Romana or Susan. Nope, nothing. I'm hoping that with Russell T. Davis taken back over, that we might get some Susan or some Romana involved, because they're both Time Lords.
Right. He's taken back the showrunner as of this next.
Yes, the next upcoming season. Russell T. Davis is the one who brought it back with Christopher Eccleston.
Gotcha.
Stephen and Dodo left the Doctor eventually, and that's when he got the last two companions, Ben and Polly, and they met the Cybermen in Antarctica. And it is at this point where, in the original story, that basically the Doctor falls. Well, before that, he goes outside the TARDIS for a second. In that second that he goes out, that's where that new episode, Twice Upon a Lifetime, occurs.
Right.
He goes out of the TARDIS and meets a future self.
He meets Peter Capaldi. That's that episode.
Yes, it's where he meets Peter Capaldi. And the events of the episode convince both Doctors that it's time to go through regeneration. So he goes back into the TARDIS, falls on the floor, and he regenerates for the first time and wakes up as Patrick Troughton. I kind of loved and at the end of that is the first official appearance of Jodie Whittaker. So technically there were 3 Doctors in that episode.
It's not the most Doctors that have been in an episode.
No. I want to say some of the stuff where they're going around and they just show scenes from other stuff, where we've seen all like 13 of them.
Right.
Now they did produce a film right around the 50th anniversary called An Adventure in Space and Time. And it's a 2013 British biographical film starring David Bradley, again, as, well, not as the Doctor, but as William Hartnell. Brian Cox, again, the great Brian Cox.
Brian Cox, Brian Brown, Brian Dennehy. Right?
Yes, Brian Cox, who played Sidney Newman. Now, Sidney Newman was the controller of drama for BBC. He's the one that originally had the idea for Doctor Who, because he'd come over from Canada, and he went to ITV, and then he went to the BBC. And he's like, we need to do a children's show where we get an old guy who runs through space and time, so we could teach the kids about history, and we could teach them about science, and he'll be like an old professor. Sidney Newman is the one who came up with the idea. Now, what was really, really great about this is Sidney Newman realized that the first producer to this show needed to be somebody with a different perspective. So he picked Verity Lambert. She is the first woman to produce a major television series anywhere, ever, full stop.
Wow.
Yep. And she was there for, I want to say, the first 2 seasons. And then she left to go do some other things in the 3rd season. Verity Lambert has come back. She's also written for Doctor Who, plus a lot of the books they discuss with Verity Lambert a lot. She and Sydney picked the director Waris Hussein, who was Pakistani, and he was a director, the first major non-Anglo director for the BBC.
Right.
Was the first to direct Doctor Who, and he directed like the first 10 series. The movies. So the idea was we want different perspectives because this is supposed to be about expanding people's minds.
Sure.
And that has gone through the whole series for 60 years. It's always not about who's the strongest, who's the mightiest. It's who's the smartest.
Mm-hmm.
And the most compassionate in most places, which is what I love most about Doctor Who. And I don't mind a slow burn.
Does he have the sonic screwdriver all the way back?
No. Okay, so he lost the sonic screwdriver. Patrick Troughton had a sonic screwdriver. He didn't use it much.
So they didn't have it with the first Doctor?
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
Now I know that they after Tom Baker was gone, they lost it. It didn't come back until Paul McGann.
Okay.
I actually for Peter Davison, Colin Baker, Sylvester McCoy, they didn't have one. But yeah, for most of the Doctors, they have a sonic screwdriver, which is a scientific tool. It's like a slide rule,
right?
And a screwdriver.
When did the magic billfold?
Oh, that's all from the new series. The psychic paper.
The psychic paper. Thank you.
Yes, psychic paper.
That's okay. I'm just curious.
Yes. Yeah. Basically, the Doctor just goes in and starts talking, and he sounds like an expert, so people just believe him,
right?
Or her, because that's the thing. When the Time Lord regenerates, it doesn't have to be a man; it can be a woman,
right?
Which we have found out with Jodie Whittaker. I love Jodie Whittaker.
I think Jodie Whittaker is great as the Doctor. I thought the writing was weak.
Yeah, which is sad because Chris Chibnall was a major writer for Life on Mars, which I thought was exceptional, but it just didn't translate to Doctor Who well.
Yeah,
I get that. Not everything will. This is a weird show.
Yeah, it is, and I wish she could have got some better writing because I really, really, really liked her as the Doctor.
Yes.
But just the writing, and that's and thinking about that, that's probably why I never watched that last season. It was just kind of weak to me.
Yeah. Honestly, that second season was better than the first one.
Mm-hmm.
And I watched the first episode of the new season. I think it's BBC America. I think you can get it on HBO too.
Yes, you can get all of them on HBO.
The classic stuff you have to get with BritBox. They don't have any of the classic stuff. It's all Eccleston up. Yeah. And I don't think anybody has the 1996 movie right now.
I don't know.
I may check BritBox for that because I would really like to see that one again because it was really good. I really enjoyed watching it, even though I'd gone on like 20-something hours of sleep, but I'd been waiting for it. So I went over to Don's to watch it and fell asleep during it. Luckily, he recorded it so I could watch it again the next day. But yeah, I think we were working at the Harbor One back then. That's when that came out.
Wow.
Yeah, a long time ago.
Yeah.
So yeah, that is basically it for William Hartnell.
Cool.
I know I was kind of all over the place, but it kind of makes me happy. Doctor Who. Get a little excited.
And just, and that's why I asked you to kind of explain Doctor Who a little bit, because I know that you're going to go, into the far deep end with Doctor Who, because like I said, as long as I've known you, you've been into it, and you've been into Doctor Who even longer than that.
Yes, since I was 10.
So I appreciate hearing about him. I'm going to appreciate hearing your take on all the Doctors, because as I said, whereas I was familiar with Tom Baker because I tried to watch it, Chris Eccleston is really where I started.
Yeah.
So
yeah, everybody has their own Doctor. My Doctor was Tom Baker because that's the one that they showed over here.
Yeah.
First, they didn't show the old black and white ones.
Right.
Matter of fact, I have probably seen less of the Hartnell and Patrick Troughton episodes than I have any of the others. But then again, for a long time, you couldn't get them. Mm-hmm. And they the BBC erased them.
Well, I look forward to the next one.
It will be Patrick Troughton.
Yes.
Patrick Troughton.
Cool. All right, then with that, I guess we will start over on the murdery side of the house.
Murder.
All right, so for my story today, I took information off All That's Interesting, Healthline, Arch Tribune, Button Willow City Wikipedia page. There was a Facebook page I took some information on, Vizaka, KHTS Hometown Station, Chilling Crimes, and just lost it. There we go. True Crimes blog. So today we're going to talk about the disappearance of Bryce Lapisa. You heard of this?
No.
Okay. So I've heard this. I've heard this told on multiple podcasts before. I wanted to cover it on my own more than anything else, just to keep this story going.
Okay.
It's a strange one, so get ready.
Let me put my seatbelt on.
Yeah.
Okay.
Bryce Lapisa was born on April 30th, 1994. He was the only child to Karen and Michael Lapisa, born in Springfield, Illinois. He was described to have an artistic talent and having an easy, charming manner, which made it very easy for him to get friends. And he had a relatively uneventful childhood and was doted on by his parents. So I just want to point that out, that really his parents loved on him. Only child, they really gave everything to him.
Okay.
Bryce graduated from high school from Naperville Central in 2012. His parents were newly retired, and they decided after Bryce graduated to move the family to California, settling in Laguna Niguel, California.
Okay.
I did read that soon after they arrived, Bryce moved to Chico, which is just 90 miles past Sacramento, to attend Sierra College, which is 465 miles away from Laguna Niguel. Okay, so moved away from home.
Yeah.
I really don't know if he chose Sierra College after they moved or if they moved because he wanted to go there.
And they just wanted to be a little closer to him.
Yeah, and there's I couldn't find anything solid on that. He went there to study graphic and industrial design, so it really could be either direction.
Okay.
I looked up top colleges for this program, and there's a School of Art Institute of Chicago, which was near where they lived. So I'm really guessing he probably decided after they moved that he would go to Sierra College.
Yeah.
It's always possible that they just wanted to retire to warmer California versus the Illinois winters.
Laguna, I'm assuming that's near Laguna Beach, which is Southern California.
Possibly.
Sierra is central. I think it's actually in the mountains, isn't it? Chico?
Maybe.
Okay.
It's 90 miles from Sacramento.
Yeah, so that's going to be like up in the...
And then Laguna Niguel is 450 miles the other direction.
Yeah.
But I really don't know if it was for the warmer California weather or if Bryce just wanted to look for colleges out west. I don't know. Not really part of the story, just
right
thoughts on it anyway. So Bryce went through his freshman year and everything seemed to be going fine. He got good grades. He enjoyed his classes. He made friends. Mm-hmm. He formed a very close friendship with his roommate. Bless you.
Excuse me. Sorry.
Bless you.
Sorry.
He formed a very close friendship with his roommate, Sean Dixon, and began dating another student named Kim Sly. He went back home during the summer break, and he told his parents, girlfriend, and friends he was very eager to go back to school. So we get through the summer, and 2 weeks before classes began, Bryce moved back to Sierra, and to all reports, everything seemed normal.
Okay.
His mother, Karen, said that they talked on the phone after he returned to school, said everything sounded really normal. Bryce told her he really liked his speech class and his web design class, and he was very excited about the new semester.
Okay.
So, Bryce is back. He's reuniting with his friends. He's returned to class. But then things began to change. Both Sean and Kim noticed that his behavior was changing.
Oh no!
They noticed Bryce was becoming withdrawn, erratic, and depressed. Kim also said that Bryce admitted to her that he was taking Vyvanse. I didn't know if you knew it. I had to look it up myself. So Vyvanse is a controlled substance with an amphetamine derivative used in treating ADHD, which Bryce did not have, and can have severe but rare side effects such as psychosis, depression, hallucinations, delusions, paranoia, and mania. It also has similar side effects similar to methamphetamine in that it provides an energy boost, allowing someone to go without sleep for an extended period of time. Bryce was using it so he could stay awake to play video games.
Oh, no.
Sean also reported that Bryce had begun to drink very heavily every day. Bryce would apparently have as much as 2/5 of liquor in a single weekend.
Wow.
Yeah, it was interesting because that made me look up what is considered heavy drinking. The CDC says for men, it is 15 drinks or more in a week, and for women, it's 8. And 2/5 of liquor for those uninitiated would be the equivalent of 32 drinks in that weekend.
Good Lord.
It's a lot.
Yeah.
Sean also did confirm that Bryce was taking the Vyvanse. So, both Sean and Kim said that Bryce's use of the drug and his drinking became very alarmingly frequent, and his behavior became even more unusual. On August 27th, he broke up with Kim by text, saying that she would be better off without him. It was reported that Bryce was very frustrated with Kim for continually questioning his behavior. The same day, he had also given Sean his Xbox and gave away a pair of diamond earrings, giving them to his mother. And then he sent Sean a text saying, "I love you, bro. Seriously, you're the best person I've ever met. You saved my soul." On August 28th, Sean saw something, say something, or say something, see something, say something, whatever. He decided he needed to call Karen Lapisa because he thought the behavior had become worrisome. And, I'd heard on multiple podcasts that this was really cool to have someone that was such a good friend that he felt comfortable calling his friends' parents. I think that's a testament of how good of friends they were. I mean, I don't know how I would have reacted at that age.
Yeah.
I knew your folks, I knew Keith's mom, but I don't know if I'd been able to say something to them if I was that concerned. I don't know. I'm thinking I might have tried to handle it myself.
Yeah.
But anyway, I think that's really cool.
Yeah. Good on Sean.
Very good on Sean. I think that's really cool because I like I said, I just kind of keep thinking back to myself, would I have had the guts to do that? And I think it's really cool he did. So around 11 o'clock that same night, Bryce called his mother. Bryce was at Kim's, and Kim had been so concerned about his recent behavior that she took the keys to his Highlander and didn't think he was in any condition to drive.
Right on.
So his mother told, his mother told, Bryce told his mother, that he and Kim had been fighting, but that he was fine. So Karen said, put Kim on the phone, said, look, he said he's fine. Give him his keys, let him go home and go to bed. Karen did offer to fly up and check on Bryce, but Bryce said, no, not really. They don't come up until we could talk later. And Bryce told Karen, I have a lot to talk to you about. Bryce then went home at 11:30 p.m.
Okay.
The next day at 1 a.m., so just, not even 2 hours later, Bryce called his mother again, but she missed the call and she assumed that he was calling from his apartment, say he had gotten home. Yeah. Because Kim lived, if I recall right, I think about 45 minutes from the school.
Okay.
So needed some time to get back.
Yeah.
At 11 a.m., the Lapisas were notified by an automated message confirming that roadside help was requested for one of their vehicles, Bryce's. They heard the voicemail from Bryce telling them that he had used their roadside assistance plan at 9 a.m. because he ran out of gas in an area west of Bakersfield.
Okay.
They couldn't reach Bryce by phone, so they called Sean, who informed the Lapisas that Bryce never came home that night. So they found out what service responded to the roadside assistance. They gave him a call, and that call was made to Castro Tire and Gas in the town of Buttonwillow, where they reached the owner, a man named Christian. Now, Buttonwillow's not big. No. It's about 350 miles from Kim's apartment. Okay. As of the 2010 census, it showed to have a population of 1,508.
Well, that's a small town.
And that's over an area of 6.9 square miles.
That's a real small town, especially in California.
It is home to one of California's 3 toxic waste dumps. Fun.
Yay!
But it is a major stop for motorists traveling along Interstate 5, as it contains gas stations, some restaurants, and, of course, Castro's Tire and Gas. Yeah. So Christian told the Lapishas he had indeed helped Bryce. He got the call. Bryce had run out of gas about 9 a.m. And Christian delivered 3 gallons of fuel to Bryce and then left as Bryce said he would be back in town to fill all the way up.
Okay.
Christian said he helped Bryce at the Button Willow rest stop, but had not seen him since. So Christian offered to go back to the rest stop to see if Bryce was still there. I thought this was a really good guy.
Yeah.
There will be more of this.
Okay.
So Christian did go to the rest stop, and he found Bryce was still there after more than 3 hours had passed since Christian arrived the first time.
And he gave him 3 gallons of gas. And he only had to run, 20-something miles?
Back to town?
Yeah.
I don't even know if it was 20 miles back to town to the rest stop. I don't think
so.
It was far at all.
He would not have used a full 3 gallons of gas.
No.
Okay,
but he hadn't moved. He's been in the same spot since Christian found him.
Yeah.
First time.
Maybe he was sobering up.
I don't know. I'll let you judge. Christian did tell Bryce, hey, you know what? Your parents are very worried about you. And then he called the Lapishas to let him know where Bryce was. And then Bryce got on the phone with his parents and he said, okay, yeah, I'm driving home. And Christian said he watched as Bryce drove off and his parents, as he drove off, and Bryce's parents expected Bryce to arrive home about 3:00 p.m. Okay. Remember, 11:30 p.m. the night before is when Bryce left Kim's to go home.
Yeah.
We're now at 3 p.m. the next day.
Okay.
3 p.m. comes and goes. 3:30, and Bryce had still not made it home. So the Lapishas contacted the police because they hadn't been able to reach Bryce on his phone. The Orange County Sheriff's Department was able to track Bryce's cell phone.
Kid is Laguna Beach because you said Orange County.
Yes. Oh, okay. Yeah, there you go. So they were able to track Bryce's cell phone. He was still at the rest stop. Hadn't moved. At this point, Bryce has now been at this location for about 10 hours. The officers did go out there and they spoke with Bryce. They told him, hey, you know what? Your parents are really worried about you. You need to go home.
Yeah, go home.
The officer said that Bryce seemed lucid, seemed very friendly, showed no signs of intoxication. They did give him a field sobriety test. They searched his car with Bryce's permission, found no drugs, no alcohol. So they told Bryce he needed to call home. And Bryce was kind of, they said he was very hesitant, that he really didn't want to call home. So the police dialed it for him. The police did tell Karen that Bryce passed their field sobriety test and seemed fine. They then got Bryce on the phone with Karen, and she asked him if he was okay, which he said yes, and that he was packing his car up after being searched. She told him that he needed to get something to eat and then come home, which he said he would. And after getting off the phone with Bryce, Karen called Christian again back at the Castro Tire and Gas and asked him if he'd go look to see if Bryce had left the rest stop. Bryce was still there.
What? Why?
Christian talked with Bryce, and again, he told him, he's like, man, dude, you need to go home.
Go home, dude.
And then Bryce said, okay, yeah, I just need to get a drink. And he bought a soda, a Coke, whatever, and informed Christian he was going to start to drive home. And Christian confirmed that Bryce indeed did get back on the interstate and was heading south, which was toward the Lapisa
He
home.
waited for him to leave.
Bryce was finally back on the road after 13 hours at this rest stop. Christian followed Bryce for about 10 miles and noticed nothing unusual, so he called Karen and said, hey, everything's okay.
Yeah. What a sweetheart of a man.
I thought Christian was really, really cool.
Yeah.
I mean,
everybody around this guy is really cool.
Yeah. Well, I mean, they're going out, they're checking on him. I thought Christian was just the best because he even offered, hey, let me go out and let me go check on him.
Yeah, why don't I go check on this kid?
So yeah, the Christian was really cool. The officers were really cool.
His friend at college was really cool.
Yes. Well, now we're going to the next morning at 2 a.m. Bryce called Karen and told her he was too tired to drive and needed a rest. Okay. He said he wasn't sure where he was, but his GPS said he would arrive at the house at 3:25 a.m. So he said he was going to take a break and take a nap. Okay. And they all said that was probably a good idea. At about 8 o'clock a.m., the doorbell of the God, I'm losing here. Lapisas, I can't even pronounce it now.
The people's house.
Yes, thank you.
Parents' house.
The doorbell rang, and they breathed a sigh of relief. They're like, okay, great, Bryce is home. But instead, there was a California Highway Patrol officer at the door, and he told the Lapisas that there had been an accident. Their Toyota Highlander, which is what Bryce was driving, had been found on its side, abandoned near Castaic Lake. The SUV had crashed down a 25-foot embankment before smashing into the road below. And the town of Castaic is just 90 miles north of Laguna Niguel. The rear window looked like it had been kicked out.
Okay.
Bryce's phone, laptop, duffel bag full of clothes, and wallet were all found inside. There were little signs of blood on the driver's seat, but no signs on the ground showing that Bryce struggled to move, and there was no trace of Bryce. There were surveillance cameras that caught Bryce's Highlander turning onto an access road going uphill toward the Castaic Lake recreation area. Mm-hmm. The camera showed Bryce driving past just a few minutes after telling Karen he was too tired to sleep to keep driving. And this was around 2:15 a.m. The same camera caught Bryce again at 4:30 a.m.
So he pulled off to sleep for a couple hours and then got back on.
No. So the way I understand it, you have to go past these cameras uphill to this recreation area.
Okay.
The cameras never caught him coming out. But at 4:30 a.m., he's going back in again. It's very weird.
Okay. All right. I understand now. Okay. I was like, oh, well, that makes sense. He slept it off for a couple hours and then...
Well, and maybe he came back down. I mean, the cameras don't take pictures of the cars coming down the hill.
Just going up.
So there's no way to know how long Bryce was at the top of the hill. No way of knowing why he was going up a second time.
Why did he go up a second time?
Don't know.
Yeah.
Don't know. The wrecked car was actually found less than an hour after the camera caught Bryce's car going uphill the second time.
Okay.
Divers did search the lake. They found nothing. Ground and aerial crews also conducted searches. Investigators later came to the conclusion that Bryce was in absolute control of the car as it sped towards the ravine and continued pressing the accelerator the entire way down willingly.
Oh, wow.
Police dogs were brought in on the 9th day of the search and tracked Bryce's scent across the bridge to a nearby truck stop, and then the trail went cold. On September 4th, 2013, a jogger saw a brush fire on Lake Hughes Road near Castaic. Firefighters responded to the brush fire, and it was determined that a burning body was the cause. The body was too badly burned to determine the person's sex or identity, but they were able later to determine that the body was not Bryce. The person's identity was actually 35-year-old Lamondra Dion Miles, who had been shot several times in the torso, dumped, and set on fire. 4 years later, a skull was found off of Template Highway nearby, but also ruled out as Bryce's. The Lapisas did hire a sonar specialist to search Castaic Lake, with the assumption if Bryce had taken his own life, he would be at the bottom of the lake.
Yeah.
They searched for 12 hours a day for 2 straight days and found nothing. Investigators have been able to close this case to this day because there's no body. So it's now been 8 years since Bryce disappeared.
Okay.
What happened?
Yeah.
Let's go through some theories here. Bryce is dead.
Okay.
This is difficult because there's no body.
Yeah.
They were onto the scene fast, and the search began fast.
Yeah.
So even if something tragic happened to him, you would think searchers would have found him before decomposition had started, before animals started to consume him. The latter, if it was animals consuming him, you'd think they would find bones or some remains. The fact that there have been no remains have been found is interesting. Did Bryce come across the murder of Lamondra Miles and then killed for witnessing a murder?
Okay.
Did Bryce hitch a ride with an insidious truck driver or get dropped off somewhere and murdered? Theories. The next theory, Bryce started a new life. The scent dogs lost the scent at the truck stop. That's really kind of always intrigued me about this case when I've heard it. Did he talk his way onto a ride in a truck and started a new life wherever he went? This is a difficult one because Bryce is very distinctive looking, and you'll need to check the website for his pictures. Bryce has bright red hair. He's muscular and has a big toothy grin. You couldn't miss this guy. He's got a very distinct tattoo on his upper left arm, and I know people can change their appearance, but go look at the pictures. I don't know that you could really change. You need to see him. When we're done here, I want you to see a picture of Bryce. So you can see what I'm saying. The other thing, he left everything behind. He had no money, no phone, no ID. You got to have money to get a new ID.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you find someone who's going to do it for future considerations.
Yeah.
He did tell his mother that he had something he needed to discuss with them. Mm-hmm. He spent hours in Buttonwillow, maybe debating on what to do: go home, commit suicide, run away. Who knows? It does appear that Bryce deliberately crashed his vehicle, break out the back window, and escape. And either he died and his body is well hidden, or he simply walked away, never to be seen again.
Never to be seen again. That's really, really strange.
Another theory.
And the girlfriend is okay, right?
The girlfriend is okay.
Okay.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Here's another theory. Bryce had a psychotic break and doesn't know who he is.
Okay.
This one is possible, thinking about the drug and alcohol abuse. Mm-hmm. Could the mixture of alcohol and Vyvanse cause a psychotic break or maybe a sudden severe depression? Possibly Bryce was actually trying to kill himself, but after the wreck, his noodle was so baked that he actually became someone else, or he believes he's someone else. What if he was in the middle of this psychotic break, thought about killing himself by driving off the embankment, and got a concussion to compound with this mental illness?
Right
on. Problem here is someone somewhere would have recognized him.
Yeah.
There has not been a single verified sighting of Bryce. There have been multiple people on the Find Bryce Lapisa Facebook page where people thought they saw Bryce and it came to nothing. It's really very sad. They celebrate his birthday and Christmas on the page every year. I went and combed through and just read through the various postings.
So this guy just disappeared.
Yeah. And all they want is for Bryce to come home.
Yeah.
There have been many people over the years who have questioned why Karen did not go pick up Bryce for herself instead of keep assuming he was coming home. I think this one was a little unfair to second guess Karen.
Yeah.
I'm sure she probably beats herself up every single day for not going to get him.
Yeah.
We've said many times we should not victim shame. She must have thought he was fine.
Yeah.
Even though he was
She talked to him.
Right. And even though he was doing some very strange things. Maybe she thought Bryce was working through a fight with Kim. At 19 years old, everything seems major and a critical issue.
Of course.
So who knows? His fingerprints, dental records, and DNA are all on record in the National Missing Persons Database. His parents continue their search and hope to this day to find out what happened to their son. At one point, they even hired a private investigator, and unfortunately, nothing was ever found.
Nothing.
Bryce was 19 years old at the time of his disappearance. He stood 5'11" and weighed 170 pounds. He has bright red hair and blue eyes. He was last seen wearing white cargo shorts, a blue and white checkered shirt, and white and red Nike shoes. Bryce also has a tattoo on his left arm and shoulder area, and both of his ears are pierced. His family wants people to know he is not wanted by any law enforcement. His family is not angry with him and loves him. His friends are worried and hope he's okay. Bryce did nothing wrong and is not in any trouble at all. And more than anything, they just want to know that Bryce is okay.
Okay.
Anyone with information from 2013 or sooner that can help investigators are asked to call 323-890-5500. You can also provide information anonymously by calling Crime Stoppers at 800-222-TIPS. That's 8477. And you can also use the Crime Stopper TIPS mobile app on Google Play and the Apple Store. And that's the disappearance of Bryce Lapisa.
That's a weird one.
I know. That's what I thought.
Bizarre.
It's very hot. Like I said, I've heard this story and read this story multiple times in the last year and a half, 2 years, when I first found out about this case. And it's very haunting to me.
Yeah.
Those 13 hours at the truck stop.
Why?
Right. That's the big question. Why? That's where I go to. Was he contemplating suicide? Was he contemplating stepping out of his life? Was he contemplating what to do next? The whole thing that he had things he needed to talk to his parents about.
Yeah.
And then he just disappears. It's all very, very haunting, very weird.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, those are the theories that I posed out there. I'm not alone in a lot of those theories. I just kind of gave my own spin on it. But I'd love to know what somebody else thinks on this. I'd love to know, what maybe some other theories are out there, because I think this is just a truly strange disappearance.
Yeah. Yeah, especially in connection with that one murder of that lady.
The guy. It was a guy that was killed.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, is there a connection there? Don't know. I mean, he was found, the burning body was found in the same area.
Yeah.
But that's where I got my theory. Did Bryce come across this and he got taken out for witnessing a murder?
Yeah. And then stashed somewhere in those woods. Yeah.
Maybe, it's all so weird. And it's hard to believe that so much time has gone by
and nobody's seen this dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, because even with some of the guys that were on the lam, we get reports. Yeah, we saw this person here, we saw this person there. Even a mistaken identity, but no one has seen anybody.
Right. I mean, are you
yeah,
gonna miss this kid?
Yeah. Yeah, I know.
Now that you've seen the pig, he's got that big old toothy grin. He's very distinctive looking.
Yeah.
He's got a big old huge tattoo. For him to up and disappear and change his appearance, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know. It's just so weird, and I feel really, really bad for this family and for his friends. They've spent all this time wondering just what happened.
What happened?
And I think whereas I know they want him back, I think closure is what they need too.
Yeah.
It's just it sucks.
Yeah, they need to know one way or the other.
Yep. So that's the end of my story for this week.
Well, thank you, sir.
Sure, thank you. Appreciate it.
You were correct. That was a weird one.
I know. So yeah, thanks for tuning in this week and listening to us. As we end our recording week, as always, you can find us at nerderymurdery.com. You can get all of our contact information from there, from our social media to our email. We would appreciate hearing from you and opening up discussions on a case like this on Bryce Lapisa, and let us know what you think about it.
Yeah.
Would love to hear your thoughts on that, or any episode, on anything that you want to hear, because we have covered episodes from our listeners previously, and we're wanting to do more. So please do check that out. Also on our website, you can see the links and pictures from each episode.
Yes.
Definitely look at this one for Bryce.
Yeah, because you see that dude, say something. If you see something, say something.
Say something. So definitely look at the site for pictures of him. On our site, you can also find our merchandise, or links to our merchandise, where you can get your Nerdery and Murdery logo merchandise and show off your fandom. You can also find our Patreon there, where if you would like to help us keep going with this show, please do consider donating to the show. We appreciate each and every one of our patrons. Please and thank you. As always, please do not forget to review us wherever you can. This is something that you can do completely for free that helps us out.
Yes.
Help us as fans, and give us a 5-star rating where you can on iTunes, Google Podcasts. And with that, that's the end of our week.
I have been Zig with your Nerdery.
And I'm Geoffrey with your Murdery.
Cue the music.